What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlelamia here, back with another video. You know what? Wrestlemania 33 is just days away and we are hyped. Of course, we'll be covering it, giving our full review just after the event, but to keep the hype up, we thought a couple of obscure facts about the Showcase of Immortals should help tick the days down. And if you want more, just let us know in the comments below. Let's start off with number 1. The Hollywood Backlot Brawl was pre-taped 3 weeks before Wrestlemania 12. What was supposed to be Razor Ramon vs Goldust in a Miami street fight turned into a Hollywood Backlot Brawl between Roddy Piper and Goldust. Of course, the in-ring conclusion to the match took place in front of a live audience, but all the scenes filmed outside the arena, which was actually filmed at Universal Studios, had been pre-taped 3 weeks before the event. This meant the match could be properly edited leading up to their confrontation in the ring, as they would show vignettes of both the real O.J. Simpson chase footage in between other matches, and then arriving back at the arena later on the show. If you notice in the brawl outside, Piper's hand was bleeding, leading to blood being spilled on Goldust on both his head and wrestling attire. This all happened 3 weeks before, so makeup had to be applied to avoid continuity. The reason for Roddy's hand bleeding was Goldust mentioned to Roddy he wanted to bleed the hard way, i.e. without a blade job. This led to Roddy clocking Goldust for real in the forehead, breaking Roddy's hand in the process. It seems it was Piper in the end that bled the hard way. Dave Meltzer predicted WrestleMania 3 to be a failure. We managed to find this info from Scott Key's website theblogofdoom.com, where he's covering all or most of the Observer issues from the 80s. It's interesting looking in hindsight what the wrestling landscape was at the time, as Dave Meltzer seemed to be more negative during the 80s. This was possibly due to the fact that he was in his mid to late 20s and absolutely despised WWF's style of wrestling. Well, in one article he predicts WrestleMania 3 being a complete failure. Meltzer notes that WrestleMania 2 was a flop in just about every way, and they're colder now than they were last year. Andre as a heel is a new thing, but fans probably don't realize that the match will be terrible. Ticket prospects don't look promising, and they're going to be emphasizing this new pay-per-view thing for the show instead of good old closed circuit. March is not going to be a pleasant month. Oh, how wrong he actually was. CM Punk vs Chris Jericho at WrestleMania 28 was originally going to end in a DQ after 9 minutes. Chris Jericho mentioned this on his podcast where he had Sheamus as a guest and discussed WrestleMania 28. He said it was Vince who came up with the idea that the championship match should end in a DQ after 9 minutes, where Punk would not stop beating on Jericho in the corner of the ring. But the finish would be changed later because they decided to make Bryan vs Sheamus 18 seconds and they wanted one proper championship match on the card. Could you imagine that? 2 championship matches having 2 crappy finishes on the same night. Brock Lesnar announced he was quitting 12 days before WrestleMania 20. Lesnar seemed unhappy with the WWE leading up to Mania, as he felt he was demoted to mid-card level. Travelling to distant places for tours only to be put on the middle of the card was something Brock Lesnar didn't want anymore. With less than 2 weeks to Mania, Brock almost walked out without giving notice, but was persuaded by his wife Rena Mera to stay for the duration and talk to Vince. On the 2nd of March 2004, Lesnar came to the agreement it would be his last match. Jericho was to face Ryback at WrestleMania 29. In an interview with Fox Sports, Jericho mentioned he had an argument with Vince a few weeks before WrestleMania about hosting a show called Downfall. In fact, the argument increased tenfold when Jericho mentioned he had a phone conversation with Vince where he was asked to quit the show and Jericho still refused. McMahon threatened to fire him and punch him in the face, to which Jericho cockily challenged him to do so. But both of them patched things up and Jericho was told he would be working a program with Ryback at Mania 29. He stated, "I wasn't supposed to be working with Fandango at WrestleMania 29. It was supposed to be Ryback, and that was kind of the deal we had made. That was the promise that was made, and it was changed very quickly for no reason. I wasn't happy about it either. We had about 3 weeks to come up with an angle, and if you go and watch that match and watch the night after, the most over guy on that show was Fandango, and I'm taking a huge chunk of the credit for that. Thank you very much." Seems like Vince was still angry at Jericho because he put Fandango over at Mania. WrestleMania 17 had 2 run-ins that were cut. In 2001, a few weeks before WrestleMania 17, Michaels was called into Raw to do something to help build up Triple H's WrestleMania match with The Undertaker that year. Unfortunately, Shawn was taking a lot of pills at the time in 2001. He had developed an addiction to painkillers over the years. When it came time to talk to him about his role on the night's edition of Raw, Shawn was apparently in no condition to perform. Michaels got in a huge argument with Triple H about it, and they said that they didn't talk about it for a year after that. It was speculated that Michaels would have made a run-in or made special guest referee. The final episode of WCW Nitro took place only 6 days before Mania 17. Unfortunately for WCW wrestlers, the only involvement they had in the event was a shout out by Shane and a quick shot of them in the skybox. The original plan was to have a run-in during the Shane vs Vince match, but Shawn Stasiak went on the No Holds Barred radio show and blew the entire angle, giving up all the details about the run-in a day before Mania. The whole group was almost fired on the spot, but was instead allowed to stay on and watch Mania from the skybox. Big Show wanted a losing record at Wrestlemania. We all know Taker has the best Wrestlemania record, but Big Show wanted to create Wrestlemania history by having a reverse record of a losing streak. In an interview with Games Radar, Big Show said, "I've always prided in myself in doing what's best for business. The only time when I had an ego is when I wanted to reverse the Undertaker record at Wrestlemania, and they messed it up. I was 0-8, and they let me win 1. Imagine being 0-22 all time." His current record stands at 5 wins and 11 losses. WrestleMania 6 has the most deceased wrestlers on any WrestleMania card, the total number being 17, and this includes Andre the Giant, Earthquake, Hercules, Mr. Perfect, Rowdy Piper, Bad News Brown, Dusty Rhodes, Sapphire, Randy Savage, The Ultimate Warrior, Sensational Queen Sherry, Mr. Fuji, Dino Bravo, Big Boss Man, Rick Rude, Jimmy Snuka, and Miss Elizabeth. WrestleMania 7 held it previously with 16 deaths. In contrast, it's sad that you can only go as far back as WrestleMania 26 to have a full card of living wrestlers. Kim Kardashian was paid $25,000 just to read the WrestleMania attendance. The coach briefly told this story during an interview on ESPN radio. He also mentioned that she had a hard time remembering the number, so she needed a card with it written on. TNA wanted to fly a plane over the Citrus Bowl at WrestleMania 24. It was rumored that they planned on flying a plane over the Citrus Bowl during WrestleMania 24 to promote TNA Impact. The stunt never happened, and word has come out that the WWE prevented it from happening. Their failed plan led them to attending Raw the next night, where they supposedly parked a TNA wrestling truck with large TV screens showing TNA footage. WWE had them thrown out, the driver was given a refund of his parking fee and was ejected from the parking lot. Bret Hart turned down being guest referee at WrestleMania 18. It had been over 5 years since the Montreal Screwjob. By this time, Bret had officially retired in 2000. Hart was open to mending fences and building bridges with Vince and the WWE, so a proposal was made by Carl DeMarco of WWE Canada for Hart to appear unadvertised as a referee in Chris Jericho vs Triple H's title match. In exchange for the appearance, WWE would allow Hart to use some of their photos for his autobiography. Ultimately, Hart thought it through and rejected the offer. Well guys, that about wraps up this video here. I hope you enjoyed the facts, and if you want more, please let us know in the comments below. Subscribe if you already haven't, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.